One of the most cited quotes by anti-Confederate intellectuals came from Alexander Stephens on March of 1861, just a few weeks before the firing of Fort Sumter. In this speech, Stephens declared that the cornerstone of the Confederacy was the idea that blacks were inferior to whites and were intended to remain as slaves. This sole line is often cited as definitive proof that the Civil War was about the expansion of slavery and the preservation of white supremacy in the South. However, the standard presentation of this quote is problematic to say the least and ignores the context of the time period. For starters, those who quote Stephens conspicuously leave out the immediate sentence in which he justifies his views based on the development of science. During the 20th century, scientists, particularly from the North and England, began popularizing theories of racial hierarchies, which stated that the African was inferior to the European. This view permeated all aspects of American society at the time. Even Abraham Lincoln, in his famous debate with Senator Stephen Douglas, admitted that he did not view the African as equal to the white man. Although Alexander Stephens' views should be rightfully condemned, it is important to understand that this view was not unique to the South and was held by Northerners alike. One key difference in their views, however, was that the South believed that blacks were integral to American society. In fact, even in the Cornerstone Speech, Stephens makes reference to this. The North, on the other hand, not only held that blacks could not integrate into white society, but that blacks' presence in America was unnatural and burdensome, believing that the slave plantation system had artificially preserved the black population. The most popular theory was that the end of slavery would lead to the disappearance of all 5 million African slaves in the United States, either through mass migration to South America or outright extinction, something Northerners had no qualms about. After all, Lincoln Secretary of State William Seward described the African as a foreign and feeble element, unnecessarily transplanted into their field and unprofitable to cultivate. This was despite Seward's home state of New York having profited from the lucrative slave trade for nearly 200 years. Another inconvenient truth about this speech is, despite historians using it to dismiss claims that the Civil War were about other issues besides slavery, Stephens not only makes reference to tariffs and federal power as a major reason for secession, but he dedicates the entire first half of the speech to those issues with no mention of slavery at all. In his opening, Stephens declared the old thorn of tariffs, a source of irritation, has been removed, and yet one rarely hears this quote in the context of the Cornerstone Speech. Even the name is a post-bellum invention intending to highlight one aspect of the speech and bury all criticism Stephens gave towards tariffs and internal improvement projects. The reason is to propagate the narrative of the supposed lost cause myth, which wrongfully claims the Civil War was solely about slavery, and that mentions of tariffs or federal power being major factors of secession were post-bellum revisionist history. This speech clearly shows tariffs and federal power were cited as causes of secession before the war even started. And yet it is those who claim to be upholding truth that are the ones revising history, ignoring both context and content of the supposed Cornerstone Speech.